Hi, welcome to HowtoDandD. My name is Fred Weller, and today I want to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, because I usually do talk about Dungeons and Dragons. What is the topic for today? Well, as it happens, like all the things that I tend to do, there's always a rationale as to why I cover something, and I decided that the Manticore was a good choice. This is the Manticore Dungeons and Dragons lore, and I've kind of done the best I can in terms of pulling together all the different ideas that you can include with this creature to give you sort of the most holistic look at a monster or creature that you probably have been very familiar with, because it's quite a popular monster. It's not something that people don't like. It's been hanging around for ages, surprisingly a very long time. And I'm pleased that it has, because then I have something to talk about. So what is this thing? The Manticore is a true monster. It has a lion's torso and legs. It has bat-like wings, although they have also been described in Dungeons and Dragons as being like a dragon. It has a man's head, or certainly appears like a man's head. It has a tail tipped with iron spikes and an appetite for human flesh. Generally, the Manticore stands about 6 feet high or tall, at the shoulder that is, and it measures about 15 feet in length. And you'll find that an adult Manticore has a 25-foot wingspan, but that can vary. It can be smaller or larger depending on the size of the creature and what age it is. Each section of the Manticore closely resembles the creature it's trying to imitate in some way. The Manticore's leonine torso has a tawny hide to it. The mane of this creature is like a lion's brown and black coloured mane, and the wings are certainly bat-like, and they are usually a dark brown with kind of a little bit of hair on it, but sort of sparsely scattered around. All Manticores have a head that resembles a human male rather than a female. Even the females kind of look like a male. How do you differentiate the two? I'm not too sure. The mane resembles a heavy beard and long hair. So think about somebody who hasn't ever shaved or ever gone to the barber and actually done something about that hair. So grooming, not a big issue. Okay, it's not like Manticores walk around with scissors and can actually chop this thing back when they need to. So understandable, frankly. So there's a lot to say about the biology of a Manticore. Actually, there isn't. Like, there's almost nothing on the biology of this creature, which is why I sat down and I pulled it all together for you, so you have something to work with. There are two different species of Manticore. The most common has a tail spike with a lot of sort of metal spikes that protrude off it, and then there's a rare variety which only has a scorpion stinger but no actual spikes coming off the end of the tail. Most Manticore spend much of their time resting due to the high calorie intake required to power the muscular body that they have, while restricting its hunting time usually to after dusk, much like a lion. The Manticore's wing has a wide spread of long bony digits covered with a thin membrane, and this membrane is kind of leathery. It's a durable skin. The thin wing membrane consists of connective tissues, elastic fibers so that they don't actually tear, nerves, muscle, and obviously a lot of additional blood vessels. Otherwise, this whole wing structure would just fall apart. A bat's wing is more agile in flight, more agile in fact than most birds, and so you would think that a Manticore would be good at flying. But if you connect the bat wings to a heavy muscular feline body such as the Manticore's, all those benefits are essentially lost. So a Manticore kind of sucks when it's flying. The tail spikes are launched as projectiles with an air-filled pouch at the end of the Manticore's tail and a flicking motion generated by ribbon-shaped muscles along the tail itself. The stinger from the Manticore's tail spikes, or the scorpion stinger itself, is actually instantly fatal, apparently. I think that's actually not quite right. I would say it probably takes about 5 minutes for somebody stung by this thing to actually perish. So what it does is it delivers an alkaloid neurotoxin that paralyzes the creature, including the heart. And of course, if you paralyze the heart, then everything eventually shuts down, hence why it really takes about 5 minutes rather than being instant. All manticores see fewer colors than humans, but have an excellent night vision because their eyes have a membrane that concentrates what are really weak light that it would be coming into the eye to the back of the retina, where it has many rod-shaped cells. It has far more rods than cones in the retina compared to a lot of other creatures, much like a lion, in fact. The manticore with the scorpion tail has 5 segments making up the metasoma, I believe it's called, while the telson or stinger at the end contains a symmetrical pair of venom glands. This is where all of the poison is delivered from the stinger or injected into the spikes. So when they actually are flung out, they cause significant damage. The mouth of a manticore has 3 rows of teeth designed to saw through bone while eating its prey. It can actually saw through more than bone, but it doesn't generally try to do that. There are some exceptions though. We'll talk about that more. A roar from a manticore sounds like a musical instrument, the trumpet, surprisingly. This is actually due to the peculiar hollow cavities in the skull of the monster near the larynx. And the brain of a manticore is not as advanced as a human's, but it's got more in common with the great ape than it does a large cat, surprisingly. Now, combat for the manticore, what does that look like? The manticore usually fires a volley of 1 to 6 tail spikes when it's going to target anything. That's usually its go-to. It doesn't usually go straight for the other weapons that it has. It can fire those spikes a maximum of 180 yards generally, but there is some variation, of course. Each manticore spike pierces the flesh like a hot knife through butter, causing really deep wounds. They're quite long, those spikes. The manticore can fire about 4 volleys each day from its tail because the spikes actually regrow pretty quickly. Now, when I say pretty quickly, that can actually be anywhere from 24 hours or more, but additional spikes are often held in the end of the tail, and you can go and check out AJ Pickett's video because he will explain that far better than I can. Hunting tactics for the manticore involve closing with the prey once it has expended most of its spikes, and if the prey is still not actually dead, but usually the poison is supposed to do most of the job, it will close with the prey using multiple attacks. Its front claws come in first and then the teeth. Same as a cat. In an outdoor setting, manticores try to stay in the air to minimize their chance of being attacked. So usually they don't go landing. It's the same as a dragon. Manticores are really clumsy flyers, as I just mentioned. However, when it comes to actually attacking something in the air, they simply are not able to, for some reason, employ their teeth while in the air and attacking something. So if they have a battle in the air and it's airborne and not on the ground, and it's actually become a close quarter fight, they can use their claws, but they're unable to actually engage their teeth. I'm not quite sure exactly why, but that's sort of the going understanding. Now, the habitat and society of the manticore. Manticores are found on any climate. They do prefer a warm land, or colder lands aren't the most preferred location generally. So a warmer climate is usually definitely their preference. This reflects the wide range of different manticores and their favorite foods. Now, they will range across different climates, absolutely, and it's usually to chase where humans go. So if humans are living there, they will go there. And of course, humans prefer to live in places that aren't too cold, unless of course they have central heating, but I generally think in your world you probably won't have that. Surprisingly, the manticore needs a diet of flesh, bone, and iron for good health. Who would have guessed it? which is why they usually target the armored characters or anything that is wearing metal. If you've got metal on you, you're probably its first target. A Manticore's territory may cover up to, say, 20 or more square miles and include at least one human settlement. So they're usually going to position themselves close to a food source, and humans are it. Each such territories usually overlap with other Manticore territories and other man-eating predators like dragons or other flying creatures. That can cause some problems. The Manticore's greatest rivals include a range of flying predators such as the chimera, griffins, the peritons, wyverns, and definitely dragons. All dragons hate the Manticore and will attack them on sight. They are the deadliest of enemies, and the Manticore fears the dragon. If you want to scare off a Manticore, make the noise of a dragon. That might actually do it. Pack hunting does occur within a Manticore pride, and when I say pride, what I mean is the family pride. You usually don't have stray Manticore coming together to hunt. It will usually be the male, female, and its offspring, and if their offspring have got to a reasonable size and have an extended family, they do form their own prides given enough time. It's not always the case, but it does occur. Manticores mate for life, so once they've selected a mate, that's it. The male Manticore remains with the female during the gestation of their infant. It hunts for the pregnant female while it's unable to do so as it's carrying. Manticores bear one or more cubs, which grow rapidly to adulthood in about 5 years. In about 5 years you get an adult Manticore. In their first year, the Manticore cub lacks the ability to fly, but they can still do a reasonable amount of damage. They still have enough power and cunning and resources to employ claws and teeth. What you will find is the adults will generally be able to still pick up the cub even when they're aged of 1 year. After that, it gets a bit harder. There is a 25% chance, or about a 1 in 5 chance, that you'll find a female Manticore lair with cubs under 1 year old in that actual lair itself. They don't lair that often, and their lairs aren't particularly nice, but they do, particularly if there are young involved. Manticore cubs hunt with paws and teeth, as I mentioned. It's possible to capture a Manticore cub and train them to assist, say, an evil human in sort of a range of bloodthirsty tasks. Such Manticore training is difficult and it's dangerous, and especially since, like, if you're trying to domesticate a wild animal, and this is definitely one of those sorts of things, there is a chance that a Manticore adult will revert to its wild state. There's actually probably about an 80% chance that this will take place. So a lot of individuals who thought they could master a Manticore and keep them under control have found that didn't work. Manticores will not allow themselves to be used as a mount. Now, why is that? Primarily that's because they aren't strong enough to carry a rider in the first place because their flying ability is so poor. And also, on top of that, this particular monster, the Manticore, considers being another creature's mount or being ridden as demeaning to it. It doesn't actually like it. It's not the sort of thing it considers even remotely desirable. So even if you have an alliance between some sort of evil creature or being that alliances with a Manticore, they're probably not going to be riding that Manticore. Wild Manticore adults may voluntarily ally themselves with, say, an evil human, which they do occasionally, and they will do this usually provided their ally can give them a steady and ample food supply. If there's not an ample food supply and there isn't a big, huge benefit to them, they're probably not going to do it. Manticores normally eat their prey where they kill it, and they consume everything, including the bone, and they leave absolutely no remains. Hence why a lot of individuals who go missing have been I mean, the thought is they've probably been killed by a lion, but the thought is that if there are no remains and somebody goes missing, it's probably a manticore. This goes right back into the legend of the manticore. Male manticores sometimes haul their slain prey back to their mates or drag, say, a still living prey to their lair for the cubs to practice killing and hunting. Manticores collect their victims' valuables for a variety of reasons. They are capable of consuming them and breaking them down, but they do this because curiosity. It's part of that. It's like, what is this thing? Emulation of other monsters who collect treasure, like the dragon. So they're trying to emulate the dragon. The man scent on the thing. So actually smelling human or man or woman on it is what draws them to it. So they want that smell around. Or because they know that humans actually value these things that they have found or taken off a victim, and therefore there's a good chance that humans will go looking for those items and then they can lay a trap and then eat them. The manticore's lack of real hands prevents the manticore from using what magical items fall into their possession. However, manticores that have allied with evil humans, they may actually possess a magical item designed specifically for their use. An example would be, say, a magical collar around the neck of the manticore, or a bracelet that is, in effect, an oversized magic ring and just been resized to fit them under the circumstance. Now, something like head rubbing and body licking between a manticore is a form of greeting and a part of their communication. Because the manticore licks their fur to clean themselves, just like a lion or a cat, it's also part of their social grooming process and showing affection and communication. They do form hairballs, much like smaller cats, and these hairballs or fur balls actually pass through their bowel. They actually poop them out, but they do occasionally vomit them up just like a normal cat. A manticore can speak broken common. Now, how is it that a manticore can speak this common language? It's not going to be very good. It's not how a manticore would communicate with another manticore at all. It is taught to them by the prey that they are trying to mimic. And so they will certainly use common to taunt their prey, so particularly humans, so that they can actually degrade them and give them a hard time before devouring them. But how did the manticore pick up the common in the first place? Because they spend so much time around humans and stalking them, they actually pick up common from humans, listening to them, listening to human speech and the way that they approach and discuss things. So they actually learn it by listening to humans and other creatures that speak common. And such a common language, as cause it's common, right? They actually wind up learning this as well. Now, the ecology of the manticore. Manticores are wide-ranging carnivores that have successfully survived in every region inhabited by humans so far, whether in the wilderness or even underground. The manticore are a nightmarish opponent, but an invaluable ally provided they can remain an ally, under the right conditions, that is. A manticore's pelt is a mark of the most powerful hunter and warrior. So there are many tribes out there with warriors and hunters who go hunting for the manticore. If you successfully come back with the pelt of this thing, you are deemed, you wind up having quite a high standing within that tribe or society. An intact and cured manticore hide, complete with the wings, is worth about 10,000 gold pieces in good condition. The manticore with a tail stinger and no spikes is actually an endangered species because it has been hunted for its toxic poison, and because this particular type of manticore that just has the scorpion stinger without the spikes that can be shot out or flung, it is more likely to wind up perishing, and so therefore it is actually endangered currently. So if you see one, try to avoid it and leave it alone. Okay. The manticore can eat and well, so there are certain things that a Manticore can eat and can't eat, and a Manticore will try to eat pretty much anything, okay, including metal, because it needs to have the iron in its system, but it can't eat an adult elephant. Now, why is that? It's because apparently the elephant is immune to the Manticore's venom or poison. And also, a fully adult elephant is just way too strong and powerful for a Manticore, even though the Manticore can fly and an elephant can't. Now, how would you go about incorporating the Manticore into your adventures? I have a range of different ideas for you. Some you will like and some you will not. You do not need to listen to everything. Okay. You could have a Manticore pretending to be an old man who needs assistance and hides the rest of their body in the bushes to lure victims to them. And then, of course, you can have them attack and devour whoever comes close enough. You could have a tavern owner who is an old Manticore that used to send adventurers on suicide quests and now has developed some sort of lingering guilt for having done that. Kind of sick, but hey, we work with what we got. You could have a squad of Manticore that are acting as aerial support for an army. This might be for hobgoblins or any kind of army, frankly. It doesn't really matter. Manticores will certainly do that, provided they get benefits for doing so. A pair of Manticore with new pups could take up temporary residence in an attic of a home or on the top of a windmill, since a windmill's probably easy to access and they probably don't have a lot of people around, so they hopefully can get away with doing that. I've done this myself, actually. A cunning Manticore could scavenge a recent battlefield and collect up all the metal and bone and flesh and feed off it, simply making it stronger and giving it the nourishment it needs. Remember, as I said, Manticore need metal, not just bone and flesh, and so a battlefield would be a great place to find one, just scouring and scavenging that location. You could have a two-dimensional stained glass Manticore in a temple window that comes to life and acts as a guardian against thieves who might steal stuff from a temple. So we're not actually using the standard Manticore as we know it. We're modifying the Manticore into a construct that's made out of stained glass. A village full might be attempting to ride a Manticore that they have found and is then attacked and potentially the monster's next meal, and so of course the player characters have to step in before said village full winds up a joke and a meal going down the creature's throat. You could have a Manticore bard who collects I know what you're thinking. You could have a Manticore bard, stay with me, who collects stories, poems, jokes, and riddles. Now, I want to thank the Dungeon Master Roundtable. A lot of the ideas that are now being presented are from them, and I will hopefully be able to show you that video in the future. You could also have flocks of tiny pooping Manticores that cover a town in shit. Like if you have like them migrating through, these tiny little Manticores fly in and it sort of just descend like birds or pigeons and just poop everywhere. The Manticore could be convinced to act as a guard to a Lemar's lair, so the entrance to the Lemar's lair, and you have a Manticore who sort of sets up position there. Of course, it's got to be fed, but yeah, I think that's a combination that would work quite well, and it's actually listed in the Monster Manual for Dungeons & Dragons 5e. You could have a powerful hill giant, might have a Manticore as a hunting companion, not as a hunting companion as in a slave or come here boy and wolf whistle to get them to come. No. For mutual benefit, okay, while it suits the Manticore or the monster. Now, how do you go about defeating a Manticore? Well, there are a couple of strategies that work pretty well, and that is you can use ranged attacks such as bolts and arrows. Any kind of ranged spells should be reasonably good because a Manticore is probably flying, okay? Spells that target a Manticore's mind are usually going to be more effective because it's got a reasonable degree of wisdom, but other than that, its mind is not as strong as a human's, or even some of the other humanoid creatures and beings that exist. Now, hard cover is probably the best strategy to avoid being hit by the poisonous spikes that the Manticore can launch from its tail. So if you can stand behind hard cover, like a stone wall or brick wall or a rock or even a big tree, that's probably a good idea. Moving in and out from total cover or from hard cover while firing some sort of projectile weapon is probably very effective. It's the strategy that I would suggest most out of all of them that I've mentioned here. Why is this? Because a Manticore doesn't have cover while it's flying usually. Unless there is cloud cover, which there's no guarantee there will be, and clouds don't usually sit down that low, you're not necessarily going to have fog or mist involved, so they're probably going to be easy to spot. So you can probably pick them off. So if you have cover and they don't, that's probably a better idea. So you pop out, you take your shot, you move back in behind your cover. Now, there's also a spell you can use, the Earthbind spell, which will bring a Manticore to the ground. It has a long range, and it is designed specifically to force a flying creature out of the air, out of the sky and onto the ground, so you can then rush it and then pummel it to death. And of course, that is a strategy that a lot of people like to employ. So what is the history of the Manticore? Well, actually, it's a little bit vague, and for obvious reasons, it's been around a really long time. The Manticore is actually a Persian legendary creature or myth, which is also sort of suggested as being a real thing. It is based largely on the large felines of ancient times, such as the tiger, the lion, and probably was the result of people going missing, being killed and completely devoured by a lion or a tiger or some other big cat, and so the legend has gone that, okay, this creature is actually a Manticore. The original Manticore didn't actually have wings, by the way, but in Dungeons and Dragons it does. So the original Dungeons and Dragons Monsters and Treasures book in 1974 had the Manticore. The Advanced Dungeons and Dragons Monster Manual in 1980, the first edition of AD&D, had the Manticore in it. The Advanced Dungeons & Dragons Monstrous Manual for 2nd edition, which was Advanced AD&D as well, that actually had the Manticore in 1993. The version 3 Monster Manual in 2000 also had the Manticore, and so did the 3.5 version in 2003. When they re-released the Monster Manual, we got the Manticore again. The 4E Monster Manual, the first one in 2008, also had the Manticore, and finally the Manticore also appears in the 5E Monster Manual in 2014. So the Manticore has been printed in every version of Dungeons & Dragons, which actually makes this monster, much like a dragon, probably one of the more important monsters to include in your campaigns compared to anything else, just because it's been so consistently utilized. And it's probably because the lore behind it has been reasonably interesting, and it is such a very much an iconic monster. Out of all the monsters you could select, definitely this is a good one to have. Now, I'm hoping that you found this useful, and if you did, please let me know in the comments section. By all means, share your stories about how you use the Manticore in your game, and hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s.